So there's no better feeling than that good solid strike, ball and then turf, particularly with the irons, but especially with everything on the ground. But it's something that most golfers really, really struggle with. And you might be one of those golfers who kind of gets tee shot away, and everyone says how hard the tee shot is. But once you get over the golf ball, when the ball's on the ground, you can stand up there, lots and lots of swing thoughts going through your head, and you can stand up there, top the ball that goes 2 yards in front of you, or you stand on the next one, crash into the ground, take a big long divot, but unfortunately, the divot's behind the golf ball, you lose all the energy to the club, and the ball goes nowhere. So this video is very kind of inspired by somebody that I had for a first lesson the other day. And I was watching him warm up, and there was lots and lots of poor strikes with his 7-iron. And the first question that I asked him was, look, what do you think happens on a well-struck shot? And he kind of didn't really understand what he was even trying to do. So I said to him, right, when you hit a good golf shot, should you touch the ground at all? And he went, well, I'm not sure, because when I touch the ground, generally the shot's not very good. And I said, do you think you should take a divot? And he went, well, when I take a divot, again, it tends to be back here and the ball goes nowhere, so I'm going to say no. Then I said, do you watch the best players in the world on TV? And do they take a divot? And he went, they all take a divot, but it's weird. Their shots are obviously a lot better. So we explained that he obviously wants to take a divot and hit the ground, but we need to make sure that the divot starts target side of the ball. So straight away, that was different for him. So the first thing we did was we said, right, let's make a few swings and let's actually get you touching the ground at all. And obviously what we saw with him, like we see with a lot of golfers, touching the ground back here. And then what we'll work out is if I touch the ground there, I'm in trouble. So if I miss the ground, the club's traveled up and I hit the ball. So what we're looking for was like that first shot, is we want to be able to stand up there and make a golf swing that hits ball and then turf. And we can see on TrackMan there, the lowest point of the golf swing was 3.2 inches ahead. So the club's traveled down 3.8 degrees. So minus is down with TrackMan and carried 155. So we spoke about the concept of the golf swing is that club moving in a circle around your body. Obviously, is on an angle, but moves up, down, finds its lowest point, and then continues back up. So I said, what we want to do is we want to move the lowest point of the circle and kind of where you would feel kind of at your widest after the golf ball. So the first thing we said is, let's kind of imagine a line in line with the golf ball. And I want you to do whatever you need to try and hit that side of the line. So he set up, first thing, crashed into the ground back there. So after he'd done that a couple of times, I said, right, I want to try a little exercise. We're going to put the club in line with the ball, take your address. We're then going to move your front foot to the back foot, and we're going to make a swing. But as you start to swing back and the hands get about chest height, you're going to step across and then swing. So we did that, set up, back. And the first thing he noticed was he hit way ahead of where the golf ball would have been. So that was instantly different. And I said to him, can you get a feel for what you're doing? And he said, well, to be honest, when I do that exercise and I get here, the first thing I've got to do is move my body and my kind of weight more towards the target. And I said, yes. And it's not just that you're moving your weight towards, you're moving it earlier. So for him, a lot of the time, he'd get back, stay back, bottom out, and then maybe finish across on that lead side. So we did a few, and we said, right, now, could we potentially try and hit a shot doing that? So we set up, moved back, and again said, focus on when the hands are here, we're going to step across. And his first shot was a lovely strike. And we see on TrackMan there, 2.5 inches ahead, clubs travelled down 3 degrees, and 159 yards carry. And this was massive for him. It wasn't quite those numbers, but certainly picked up like 60, 70 yards because he was actually putting the club on the ball and not hitting halfway up the ball or all the energy going into the ground. So once we'd done a few of those, he said, right, so that feels very exaggerated, not just how I'm doing it, but how early. So he said, right, what we want to feel from our normal address position now is when we make that swing and the arms are going back, we want to feel that we almost stamp down onto that lead foot. And even though it's not as exaggerated, it's still that same concept. So we did a few practice swings, and it was noticeable how much more that way he got. And it was also noticeable that when he was making that swing, not only was the low point getting ahead of the ball, it was maybe getting a little bit deeper into the mat. So it wasn't just touching the top of the mat. And that's, again, what a lot of golfers do. They might get their low point ahead, but the lowest point of your swing should be the deepest part of the divot. Now, if the deepest part of the divot's still above the ground, you might touch some grass, but ultimately you're going to thin a lot of shots from there. So then we set up, so we're going to focus on, once we get halfway back, stamping that lead foot into the ground. And straight away, we saw that lovely number on TrackMan, 3.7 with an A after it rather than a B. So after or ahead of the ball rather than behind the ball. And it was like a light bulb moment for him. He was like, so actually, he says, all I've been trying to do is get underneath the golf ball. I said, yep, you and a lot of golfers that come to see me. He says, whereas now, when I move towards the target, he says, actually the loft of the club's doing the work rather than me trying to add loft. And it was kind of really insightful because he kind of got it really, really quickly. And it was the fact that maybe his misunderstanding of the golf swing and impact was actually creating some huge issues in his golf swing. And the technique very much reflects what you're trying to do. So once we got him focused on moving better, the actual technique was very good and he hit a lot of very accurate shots with great strikes and good distance. So he said, right, so once I can get there, I just want to feel that movement. And he actually found that the more aggressive he felt he was pushing his foot into the ground, the further the low point moved ahead, the more the club travelled down, and the further he hit the ball. And I'm sure a lot of you golfers out there will have heard about, hitting down, hitting up. The key to remember with that is if the lowest point of your golf swing is ahead of the golf ball, the club's travelling down to hit the ball and then the ground. The further ahead the low point, the more the club is travelling down by the time it catches the ball. So this is where moving ball position around with the various clubs is beneficial. If you were somebody with the ball in the middle, who only with practice was getting to that inch ahead, you wouldn't want your mid and longer irons and fairway woods 2-3 inches up in your stance. You'd want to keep the ball very, very central. If you're somebody with your short irons who gets that low point 6-7 inches ahead, you actually might want to play the ball a little bit further forward than the textbooks say. But sometimes it's getting that good strike on the ball. If you haven't got access to something like TrackMan, it can be a bit more challenging, but look at your flight. Chances are, if you're striking it well with hardly any loft on it, that low point's way forward, so you could move the ball position forward. I don't like seeing golfers who are back here moving the ball back because it stops you transferring your weight. But like we said, with my golfer the other day, we're going to get there. We're going to start that backswing. As the hands get to about chest height, you're going to feel like you stamp that lead leg into the ground. And when you can do that, you can just master that ball and turf contact every single time. And honestly, all the shots from the ground feel so easy, so powerful, and you really will start enjoying your golf.